So yes, Jensen Ross. I love her. I do, because Jensen came into the clinic she came in for ozone therapy on her way to Ibu therapy, which is a more extensive ozone therapy. But she had to start with me with primary ozone therapy, and she was very sick. She was struggling with things that were unusual for her at her young age, having these unusual symptoms that weren't quite leading to any particular positive results as far as healing. So I really commend her parents for bringing her into a setting that is not your typical setting to seek healing in other ways. And it seemed to have really worked well for her. Naturally, she was nervous about these things and unfamiliar and had some fears about it. And I'm so proud of her, because coming in and having to get an IV every week, and she really faced her fears. And then I saw something change in her. She started to feel better. Shortly after the first few ozones, she could see a difference. She stopped focusing so much on the process of the ozone therapy and just really getting back in tune with her body and feeling the difference that the ozone was making. I remember a time her grandfather actually brought her in. It was just a beautiful interaction, I remember, because I guess you would think of him just being the Uber that day, the ride here. But he teared up in that room. And he said, "Thank you for giving me my grandbaby back." I'll never forget that. And I know she won't either. That's what this is all about. Giving people their life back, their family back, hope for the future. That's what it's about for me.
My mom, my dad, like all of my family seeing me go through this really knew how much I was struggling, and my mom was reaching out to people, researching stuff. All my family was. I was, everybody was. And my mom got in contact with TJ Williams. So he took time when he wasn't actually scheduled to be on work, apparently, which thank God he did. In that moment, he realized how much of like a train wreck and struggling I was. Like, I want this to be done. I want to be better, and I'll do anything to get to that point. So if this is what it takes, this is what it takes. And every single time, it's always because I know that in the end it's worth it, and it has been worth it.
Look at you. How's your world?
Got back from Florida. Pretty crazy.
What were you in Florida for?
To surprise some old dance friends. No, I did not dance. We surprised them at the recital. It was down in Fort Lauderdale.
Nice.
It was pretty cool.
Nice. Okay.
Got back. Weird times yesterday. Slept basically all day, and then woke up at like 6 p.m. last night, not really knowing what was going on. Went back to bed, and now I'm here. So.
And you got this guy with a camera in your face.
Yeah.
We've got Humpty Dumpty put back together again. And she's rocking and rolling. I'll let you tell your story.
So, since I was a kid, I've always had health issues. I don't think that I can remember a time that I didn't have some kind of issue. From elementary school on, I remember missing school and being sick and being the one that had to play catch up, make up work, just whatever, constantly. From 3rd grade, I had like side issues. I had pain in my right side that would make it to the point where I couldn't really do much. Brought to the doctor's office, then the ER, thinking that it was appendicitis, and nothing. Then 5th grade came around and I ended up with Fifth's disease, and that lasted 6 weeks instead of 5 days like doctors said that it was going to. So that was different journeys to doctors and dermatologists, things that they had never seen before, saying, you don't play by textbook. And then going into junior high, I got sick again. And at that point was after I had had 2 rounds of an HPV shot. And the second round, I got very sick. I was put on a bland diet by my grandparents because they weren't really sure if I was contagious or not, when in reality I was just very, very, very ill and my body was crashing in on itself, but I was throwing up and lethargic. So they're like, oh, you're contagious. I wasn't contagious. Was homeschooled for a year because of this huge health change. We went through an entire year trying to figure out every season and how I would react, especially living in Illinois, harvest, and you have corn everywhere. That was something to deal with as well. So that was first change in lifestyle. And at that point, my family and I, we all sought out functional doctors, and then got into high school. And at the beginning of high school, we started talking to another functional doctor out in Hawaii who does immunotherapy. And he was able to get me started on immunotherapy so that I could start eating corn again. So starting in high school, I could start eating normal things like normal kids. But shortly after that, the summer in between my freshman and sophomore year of high school, I started passing out. I was a lifeguard and I would be out in the heat. So we had a training one day and I felt like I was going to pass out. I got really lightheaded and things started going black, and I was like, I need to sit down. And again, training day, so there was firefighters there, and they ended up calling my parents and calling EMS, and they brought me to the emergency room. And at that point, they said it was vasovagal syncope, so fancy name for passing out. I think in 1 month I passed out over 100 times, and that was a medical anomaly. I don't really know. Doctors aren't sure. They were trying to figure that out. Best they could come up with was POTS, and they treated it as POTS. They said that I needed to increase my hydration and salt intake. That helped for a little bit. My junior year of high school ending up with stomach issues again. Started vomiting and got to the point where I couldn't keep any food down, and every time I ate, it just immediately came back up. It was like a trampoline. Because I couldn't keep any food down, ended up in Children's Hospital in St. Louis. At that point, they determined that nerves were misfiring in my stomach and that was what was causing me to continuously throw up. So they started me on one medication that was for nerves. It helped for a little bit, but the combination of that medication and other medications then led into a different issue, which was creating heart problems, and my heart rate got too high. I got to the point where I could not walk stairs in my campus, couldn't walk across campus. I was missing classes simply because I could not get to class. I talked to the dean of students, and they were very, very, very much encouraging taking a leave of absence. And that was the first time that they encouraged it. There would be many times after that. But first time they encouraged it, I ended up seeing cardiologist at that point, and they did not believe me when I said that my resting heart rate was 130 and that walking across campus it would jump to 160 and 170 simply walking. I said that like my Apple Watch would say that. They're like, that's no way. There's no way. They gave me a heart monitor for I think a week, and within that week they realized that I had quite a few events, and I came back the following week to review the results. So they tried to prescribe me one medication. That medication didn't work, and they said that I needed to start looking at different cardiologist and cardiology routes because I needed to go through tilt table testing, stress testing, and other kind of testing, because what they were guessing was that it was POTS. I completed the stress table testing, or the tilt table testing, and the stress test, and the stress test and tilt table both failed in the terms of POTS. They said wasn't POTS, I needed to go see a different cardiologist. Went to another cardiologist. That other cardiologist believed that I had something called autonomic dysfunction. And that basically means that the veins in my body don't work properly, that they expand and contract at times that they're not supposed to. So when I stand or sit, they're expanding and contracting, not at the rates that normal people do. So blood is traveling throughout my body at rates that's not normal, which means that I lose feeling in my legs, which is why I'm sitting cross-legged. If I stand up too quickly, I feel like I'm going to pass out. This was the second time that my university encouraged me to take a leave of absence. Started seeing traditional doctors, went into pain medicine, and they got things into a functioning level for a while. And then last summer, I got sick again. It was a very small thing that led into a very rapid decline, and it was that I wasn't sleeping for a week because I was having nightmares. And I kept telling people, hey, I'm having these nightmares, I'm not sleeping, I feel like I'm gonna get sick. And then I ended up getting sick, and we've learned that my body basically takes a domino effect, and they are still speculating it as mast cell activation, just because of how quickly my body kind of deteriorates when it does have some kind of bad stimulation or whatever. I was basically in fetal position and not moving from my bed. And at that point, I stopped going to work because I couldn't get to work. I couldn't move to work. My boss was very helpful, and she was saying, you need to take a leave. You need to take a break. And she said, just take the time that you need. And I was like, okay. And I did. And then things got worse. At that point, they started going down the route of maybe it being ovaries, because I had been to the ER a couple times again, and it was an appendix. So they thought ovaries, sent me to gynecology, OBGYN, and they were believing that it was endometriosis because I have a family history of it. So started down that route. We're scheduled exploratory surgery to go in and look and see if it was. And during that time, things got worse. I was able to get into another doctor that I had seen. He told me to go to the ER, and we did. And from that route, I went into surgery. During exploratory surgery, they found nothing. Really at wit's end. I didn't know what to do. Things weren't getting better. Things were getting worse. And this is now August of 23. So school is starting. I'm supposed to be a junior in college. I wanted things to go back to how they were before, and that was not happening. I was really in a bad space mentally just because of how long things had been going on, and I wanted to kind of be done. My mom, my dad, all of my family seeing me go through this really knew how much I was struggling, and my mom was reaching out to people, researching stuff. All my family was. I was. Everybody was. And my mom got in contact with an old friend of hers, and that is TJ Williams. So he took time when he wasn't actually scheduled to be on work, apparently, which thank God he did, and allowed me to come in and had my first appointment and kind of debriefed everything that I'm telling you now. In that moment, he realized how much of a train wreck and struggling I was, and I would not move. My knees were at my chest, and I would not move from that position. I was hunched over, crying. He said that I was going to have to go through more testing, which at that moment was not happy about. Honest, I was not. I had been through so much testing, I was really tired of it. And just meant more needles, more swabs, more anything. And the test that he gave was a full book of it. And he was like, we're going to cover all the bases. I was not excited about this. I wanted things to be fixed quickly. And at that point, when he gave it to me, I was like, all right, you know what? I want this to be done. I want to be better. And I'll do anything to get to that point. So if this is what it takes, this is what it takes. And that's what I've told myself since then. And every little struggle that this has been, every single time, it's always because I know that in the end it's worth it, and it has been worth it. Starting the progress here, after the first testing was done, we did the second appointment to review the tests and basically start with taking supplements, start with taking IVs. First time taking the supplements, I didn't notice a difference, and I should have known that I'm not going to notice the difference after taking medicine for the first time. It took a little bit, but when you're at your wit's end, you want something to work fast, so you're really grasping at straws. And we told him that, my mom and I told him that, and because of that, they're like, all right, let's push the regimen. Let's try to get you better faster. Let's go as quickly as we can. They knew how much I was struggling, and they saw it, and they wanted to get me better faster. And this was, again, just how quickly I could tolerate it, but moving as fast as I could with me tolerating it. So the first round of ozone therapy, they prepared me for it to have die-off, or for your body to have die-off, and that basically all of the bad things, negative things in your body, heavy metals, toxins, all of that is, like, the test that came back from me, it showed that those were there. But all of those are supposed to go away, or slowly go away, through ozone therapy. So the first round that I did, let's just say I had a lot of die-off. I was down for a week, not fun times. Didn't want to do it again, but knew I needed to, so went back. And they also wanted to keep updated after I had done it. So they had known that I had had not a great reaction from it. Second time doing a single pass, I was fine. Then came back and went into a double pass. And this is, once they started ozone treatment, it was weekly. So this is starting in the end of November. I timed it trying to be during my Christmas break so that I could make it here. And I came weekly. So went from single pass to double passes, which is basically them taking out one syringe and passing it through their machine, to then taking 2 syringes and passing it through their machine, to then doing a triple pass and it being 3 passes through their machine. So they just progress up, and it gets you ready to do their EBU treatment, which is like their full doses of ozone therapy. By the end of January, we had completed all of the passes and now moved on to EBU therapy. I was not excited for this. I've never had good success with needles, so the idea of getting 2 IVs terrified me. I wanted to be sick, and when they told me that that's what was going to have to happen, and I almost didn't do it just because of that. I felt very nauseous, felt like I was going to throw up, almost passed out. Didn't fully pass out. Some of them will say that I did, but I didn't. So first time, very uncomfortable. Didn't like it. But I did it, and the idea of having 2 things in my arms at once, I sat here and did not move. Did not want to, was scared. Now a little bit more comfortable with moving. I occasionally do, still don't move too much, still scares me from time to time. But I started feeling better, and from being at a point where you're not able to do anything, you're going to take advantage of everything that you possibly can do. Around end of March is when I stopped doing the weekly infusions, and I'm now on what they consider maintenance, I think, and they have me come back once a month. So now I feel great. I just got an infusion, but talked to me yesterday, did not feel great. I was in bed. It's a big change from basically being bedridden and not doing anything for months because I couldn't. So here I am now. I give tours and I answer the phones at our university. I do photography and I take videos. I edit, I create designs. I'm studying graphic design. I'm going to be a senior next year. This last semester, I finished with A's and B's. I missed a total of 4 classes last semester, which is a huge difference from any semester prior, and a big success in my book, given what I've gone through.